So, Senator Gaida, can you tell me why you're here?
Yes, Madam Chair, Senate Bill 376.
Oh, okay, good. That's an easy one. Yeah.
Okay, so Bob Gaida, Senate District 2, is prime sponsor of Senate Bill 376, a bill that I think is very important to the future, and I know the policy issue's been decided. There are a couple of changes here. The 1.1 million should be sufficient. In the amendment that's presented by John Skippa, I don't know if you have that, but I think you should.
Was this,
He's got 1.2 million.
what amendment was that?
I'm looking at 2988, 21 April. 1.2 would suffice.
Mickey, that wasn't part of our, that wasn't part of what we voted on yesterday.
Well, then,
I think there was a floor amendment adopted yesterday that increased the appropriation to 1.2.
Oh, there
And
was.
that's in the bill now as amended before this committee.
Okay, I didn't see that.
that would be sufficient.
So you want,
1.2 would work. I think 1.1 would work. It might be tight. 1.2 would definitely work. I can give you the computation basis for that if you'd like. So that number is derived by taking the number of towns and cities, which is 221 towns and 13 cities. So that's 234 municipalities. 48 already have one trained CIT officer. The state police have 100 or so trained officers. We need 10 sheriff's departments and 2 corrections facilities to have a person each. So that brings the total to 188 officers to be trained.
okay. Except we also know that many towns don't have police departments.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, up north, we don't have police departments in every town, so.
Okay. That would be the committee's discretion.
Yeah.
I just patterning this to get the model out there. So at $4,700, it's the high 46 and change per training for each officer. The cost, the total costing, not including the cost of the course itself. Right. So there'd be 8 courses at $12,500 apiece over the period of time that would train all the officers that we want trained by this program. Now, that's not including the towns that don't have officers in them, so that's at your discretion. We come up to about $1,013,000, give or take. So 1.1 million would be fine. The thing that's not in the bill that needs to be is that these funds need to be non-lapsing because they're going to go over the end of the fiscal year. And so the anticipation is that they would train one class for each of the next 8 months. And if you notice, I think the bill as I saw it, now I'm not sure it's what you have, made these funds expendable or appropriate these funds for the year ending June of 22. That wouldn't be sufficient.
Okay, well, it says fiscal year ending 30 June 23.
Okay, then that's been repaired. Okay.
Okay,
That's about it. I would ask the committee to, keep its pencil sharp, but this is definitely a program that's needed.
yeah,
Had a call this morning, 20 minutes on the phone from a gal that was arrested and cuffed. She was a rape victim and PTSD and the whole 9 yards. And the chief had to come tell the young officer to take the cuffs off. She was stopped for a minor infraction. And when she saw the police officer get all frazzled, and those types of things
Right.
happen. So this training is necessary, and I would appreciate your support for it. I'll answer any questions.
no, I don't have any.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Heath has one.
Now, I didn't read all this, I'm sorry. Will the training come out of our police standards training?
The funding, well, yeah, the training courses will be approved because currently Police Standards and Training does one course, but there is another outside agency, it might be NAMI, but there's another agency that does it. They'd have to be approved by Police Standards and Training.
Okay,
The funding would all be done through the administration of Police Standards and Training with this 1.1 million.
great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Mickey, I do have a question on the language and the appropriation. I'm not real sure that that's correct, is it?
In what way? The appropriation is non-lapsing. That was part of the floor amendment that was adopted yesterday as well. So it's appropriated in fiscal 23 for the purposes stated in section 7 of the bill.
Okay, so we don't have to have the governor draw a warrant or anything like that.
There is warrant language, standard warrant language
Where?
on the very tail end of the bill, starting on line 11 on page 3.
Oh, you mean I only read to line 10? Line 11. Okay, I don't have line 11.
And just make sure everyone does have the proper version of this bill. It was amended yesterday, so the amendment would have been 1614H. Hopefully you see that in the top left corner of the bill.
Okay, okay. So this is old. The one I had.
It could, if it was as amended by the Senate, that's a previous version. It should say as amended by the House is the most recent current version of this bill.
Okay. Things are changing quickly.
Correct. That's the current version. Correct.
Okay. The other thing that I have is I don't think it's a good idea to create another board since we already have this new board that created out of LEAC. I think we just need one group of people from, whatever this new board is made up of, and it was kind of a cross section of officers that I'm just not real excited about creating another board in police standards and training.
So if I may, Madam Chair, this board would not be overseen by police standards and training. This would be an independent board. This is a study committee to look at establishing a board. Currently, as you know, the Attorney General investigates every shooting. Their determination, however, is exclusively limited to the criminality or not of the actual justification in the use of lethal force. There's nothing to address the issue of whether there might have been instances or circumstances that would have allowed an intervention prior to getting to that point, ergo the mental health issue. This board would only look at mental health components of any shooting to see if there's anything we can adjust in our training for police officers going forward, or how we might adjust our current policies. That's not within the purview of the board from LEACT. This one is specifically and exclusively for mental health review of police shooting incidents. None of the information can be disclosed, similar to the hospital situation. The hospitals have a review board as well. And that none of that can be used. It cannot be used.
Okay, so who is going to control this board?
Well, that would be determined by the study committee that's going to determine whether to establish the board. So this bill doesn't establish a board, it establishes a study committee because it's a very sensitive issue. Police officers don't want, they're worried about, how could this be used or not? So rather than establish that board, we're establishing a study committee to look at establishing the board. I think that's an important component of this. I'm not a fan of study committees, as you know, but in this case, I think this needs to be looked at pretty carefully.
Oh, yes. Somebody else asked a question.
So, I'm just wondering though, could the study committee could this be reworded that the study committee would its purpose would be to see if the current committee established under LADAC could be not expanded, but its duties increased to encompass what you want here? Because it does seem like to just have two, to have two separate committees looking at let's say police use of deadly force, rather than, each with a sort of a separate assignment, rather than one committee to do the whole thing. That kind of worries me, I guess.
Well, it worries me too. And that, I don't know how,
I'm not sure that this language is in conflict with what you're saying, right? It would study establishing a mental health incident review board. that doesn't preclude it from looking at considering the LEAC established board as that board.
I got that. But when you say establishing a mental health incident review board, without saying whatever the name of the LEAC board is, and I've forgotten, although I gave them money, that I just think that all police review stuff, okay, whether it's for mental health or it's for other things, needs to be in police standards and training. Because the goal is that
I would disagree pretty strenuously, Madam Chair. And the reason is this board is not looking at the conduct of police officers relative to anything other than mental health.
Right,
And,
but-
and if the LEAC Commission has mental health experts on it, all right, psychiatrists, psychologists, and so forth, that's one thing. I'm not sure that composition exists on that committee.
but it could be expanded to not on a full-time basis, but if you're, the key thing with police standards and training, in my opinion, is that they need to know what's going on out there so they can adjust the training. And so if we've got this something else, the feedback may not be there. And that's the part that concerns me more than anything. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I agree with a lot of things you're saying, but I also agree with Senator Gaida. Could it be a subcommittee so there's an inherent communication tool built in? So that there's a standing group of individuals that are part of the LEAC, that are standards and training, that will respond, because the issue is a serious one, and it's ongoing, and it seems to be new things keep happening.
I would not be averse to language that establishes a subset of LEAC that's dedicated to a mental health review, a review of the mental health components of shooting incidents. That would be acceptable, but as long as it's clearly stipulated that it isn't as part of LEAC, which I'm not sure that's in it. Mental Health Review Board is not in part of its current language.
No, it's not. It's not. Mickey, can you fix that?
You can fix anything.
So just to kind of summarize, this bill sets up a legislative study committee
That's correct.
to come up with a proposal for establishing an in perpetuity
Right.
committee based on whoever it determines. Is your intention here to change the charge of a legislative study committee or to establish a different committee with appointed members besides legislators?
No, it's to ensure that whatever they decide becomes part of whatever this other board is. And how that's worked out in the study committee is up to them.
So if I'd point the committee to page 2, section 4 of the bill, the committee's duties, you'd want to clarify in there that part of its recommendations should be to consider that,
Not only consider it,
or that it should be part of their recommendation.
right. Okay. And
I mean, can I?
Sure.
May I make so for example, could it say, I mean, would you be comfortable with this saying something like, the committee shall study, establishing within the, whatever the LADAC commission, within the LADAC commission, a
Mental Health Review Board.
mental health, or giving that commission authority to review the mental health aspects. I'm just sort of making it up as I'm going along, but basically the mental health aspects of the law enforcement use of deadly force and such non-lethal SWAT engagements that, as the bill says. Does that make sense?
Mickey knows.
Yeah, I'll take a look and see what makes sense to add here. And I don't know if the plan is to circle back with an amendment at
Oh,
another
yeah.
day. Yeah.
Well,
So
Don't worry
so
about it I mean,
I know we have many work
I
sessions
have-
scheduled coming up.
I
So
have all kinds of time between now and 3 o'clock on Wednesday. So, the other thing is, I think we need to go back to the 1.1 million. And I just say that we're talking, you know, there are just a lot of places that don't have police departments that are considered towns. And most of those places are covered by other police departments. Now,
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I said, if you don't have a police department, it's pretty hard to train somebody in it, right?
right,
So
right.
I don't know those numbers.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
But I know in my area, Chatham doesn't have a police department. Albany doesn't have a police department. Tamworth has one police officer. It's that's just right around Conway. So,
Would the department be able to ascertain which towns do have police officers and which don't? They must.
I would assume that police standards and training would know that, right? Am I getting a head shake?
They better know that. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Sharpen the pencil, make it work.
All right.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll recess this until Monday. I've got Ed. And that's going to take all day, I'm afraid. So I better recess this till Tuesday. We'll take it up the first thing Tuesday morning. No, Tuesday morning is like 1 o'clock, because we've got a executive session and then we've got a non-germane amendment hearing. Okay, so Tuesday at 1, since if I'm recessing, I have to set a time. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody
If you need me
else?
for any questions, please call.
Anybody else want to say anything about this? You happy? Okay, great. So, all right. Which bill did you have an amendment for? 401. Okay. I told transportation to wait until 2 because I want to take up this 394. Unless are the people in transportation out there? Huh? Is Kathy out there? Oh, okay. All right. Well, then. Let's go to 394. Is there somebody here that wants to talk about this? Okay, and your amendment's on 401, right? Okay. Okay, fine. We'll hear from the department. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. So for the record, I'm Chris Bond. I'm counsel to the Department of Education. I'm also the Attorney General Office's client counselor to the Department of Education. So I'm actually here in that capacity as well today, testifying on behalf of the Attorney General's Office as well, who has an interest in this bill. And specifically, my understanding is that the committee has questions about the financial impact, and my colleague Rebecca Fredette will be able to speak to that. The purpose of my testimony was to reiterate a concern that I had testified to in front of the House Ed Committee about, and that is specifically a First Circuit holding from a couple of years ago that creates significant risk that the current law as structured violates the requirements of the IDEA. And so the Attorney General's office feels that there's significant risk that if the age limitation isn't changed to go through the age 21 inclusive, which means up to the 22nd birthday, that there's a significant risk that a court would find that that violates the requirements of the IDEA. And I could speak to that in more detail if you want, but we are aware of at least one advocacy group that is preparing a lawsuit. They're sort of waiting to see what the resolution of this legislative attempt at a fix is. We anticipate that they would sue the state. And then we are aware of multiple due process hearings that have been brought against individual school districts on the basis of this First Circuit case. It's called Kale versus Board of Education. We know of at least one instance where the parties settled, and it's our understanding that the district agreed to provide the services as the plaintiffs argued the IDEA required. We're aware of at least one other due process hearing that will probably go forward if and only if the legislature doesn't act. So my understanding is that what came up when there was a floor amendment offered yesterday was some concerns about the fiscal impact due to the fact that if the effective date of the age change was made to be effective immediately, districts had not had an opportunity to budget for that and plan for that. I certainly understand that practical concern. I think from a legal perspective, the significant risk that the state law is currently in violation of federal law is sort of unmoved by that practical consideration. In other words, it's and I hesitate to use language that is too decisive because the state might be in a position of having to defend this law, but there's a significant risk that the law currently structured violates the IDEA, and I don't think that risk is at all mitigated by the fact that districts haven't had a chance to plan for that. I think the argument would be that we're currently in violation of federal law, so districts and the state already have this obligation imposed on them by the IDEA. That's at least that's the argument. So that's what I wanted to make sure the committee understood, and I'm happy to take any questions. And again, to the extent you will have specific financial impact questions, and I'm sure you do, I'll have to defer those to my colleague, Ms. Fredette.
Okay. So Attorney Bond, is the way this bill is right now, does this meet the needs of IDEA?
The age language, as in the draft that I'm familiar with, that I understand to be the current draft, in my view, does meet the IDEA requirement. That is the age 21 inclusive language that requires the special education services to be provided up to this 22nd birthday. I believe that is adequate. As far as the effective date, I mean, I believe that there's a significant risk that our law is not in keeping with the requirements of federal law until that effective date, whenever that is. So to the extent that the effective date on the version I'd seen was far in the future, I think maybe June 2023, I think that there's a significant risk that we would be held to be in violation of the IDEA. But as far as the actual language of the bill, I think it's sufficient, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were okay here.
Sure.
Okay, so you're suggesting on the effective date is upon passage? Or
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I think the argument is that we are in violation of federal law until that age is changed. So the longer that effective date is pushed out, the longer we remain in violation, and the longer we're susceptible, or arguably in violation, I should say, we will remain, vulnerable to lawsuits, both at the district level, because people have the ability to pursue actions directly against school districts on the basis of the IDEA, and at a state level, because we do know that there's a plaintiff that's interested in pursuing us, and other states that those kinds of cases have been successful, including in Rhode Island.
so the, I always thought that it was 21, but obviously that wasn't what was in the law. I knew the schools had to take care of them through their, 21st birthday or whatever, but obviously this didn't say that. So, the financial effect is however many children each school district has that has disabilities.
And that seek services, because there's no obligation to stay in and seek those services. So I think we can speak generally to the population of children that hit that age group, which is not a large population. But then we don't know how many of those will choose to continue their education because they aren't required to.
Okay, okay. Yep, no problem. Okay.
Okay.
That's all go ahead, Representative Heath. Sure.
Turn this on. So this has long been a problem in school districts. I found out about it simply by happenstance when I was an educator in Manchester and had a student that said, today's my birthday and I'm turning 21 and I can't come to school anymore. And I think there was a shock factor for me. And that goes back to, I think, 1982 when I found out about this situation. I was so shocked because this young lady didn't have any place to go. She had she was a foster child. She'd been signed up for adult services, but it took a while for that to kick in. But anyway, the purpose of this amendment that has just come to me, and I would like to propose it, this amends the bill by replacing all after Section 3 with the following. For the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, the Department of Education shall be liable for all school district costs related to providing services to special education students over age 21 to age 22. The department shall identify a means by distributing reimbursement to school districts within the same fiscal year in which services have been provided. Provision of such services does not obviate adult development disability services for which a student over 21 years of age may qualify under RSA 171-A. Now, in this amendment, I see that we have, here it's 24, and then we have the act takes effect 2023. So my concern is, based on what you just said, that we have a more urgent need to initiate this legislation sooner. So would you like to see this amendment read 22?
Well, let me just make sure we understand. This is saying that DOE will pick up the cost.
For 1 year only. 1 year only.
Where does it say that?
Within the same fiscal year in which services have been provided.
Yeah, but
So
that's
the intent, Mickey,
The way this is drafted on line 5, you'll see it says for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. I think the intent was this would apply to one fiscal year
Right.
and not be in perpetuity.
yes. And this
Okay.
would assist districts.
they have a lot of money out there. Seriously. That they haven't claimed for anything, which is another issue. But
I hear you.
Okay. So the other thing is that I like this inclusive over age 21, whatever that language is. Inclusive and 21 inclusive. I don't want to say to age 22 because then that's, if we're using 21 inclusive, then that's the term we should use, I think, across the board. Okay. Yes, please.
It appears to me that the bill itself, as amended 1538H, with a simple change, the effective date upon passage accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish without adding an additional amendment. To me, this amendment, to me, is very confusing. It kind of throws in a bunch of other things that don't need to be there if we simply make
Sure.
the effective date.
Sure.
upon
So,
passage.
yeah, if I can respond to that and also to Representative Heath's question. So I think I really want to make clear to kind of bifurcate the question of who would pay for the services is a policy decision that the Attorney General's office wouldn't weigh in on. The question of the effective date of the change to have the age 21 inclusive language, that's the issue that we have. And I agree that to change it to effective on passage allays the concern the Attorney General's office has to the extent there's a significant risk that we're out of step with the federal requirement. As for the whether this amendment, I think the AG's office would just be agnostic because it's a policy decision. But to the extent that the act's effective date would be July 1st, 2023, that would be continue to be problematic and still subject us to significant risk of lawsuits based on the federal statute. So I hope that answers both of you.
Well, I don't like these kind of surprises.
Can I just mention one more thing in terms
Sure.
of with regard to the payment by the department for those students? Schools have set their budgets at this point in time. And if in fact there becomes a requirement for the students for whom we're creating this situation or trying to remediate the situation for, it's a very, very small population of children, and I think the department can agree with me. And they're the children with the absolutely most severe of disabilities. Some are often in residential placements. Some require a great deal of support even to remain in a regular education environment. So there's considerable cost. So for those school districts that had believed that in fact a number of students would not be part of their school district, this would relieve the impact of a change in legislation and the requirement that these children continue to the age of 21, or however we're going to put it. So it would be a relief to school districts to help them out with their special ed budgets.
Yeah, Mary, I need to know what the department is projecting before we argue whether or not we want the department to pay it.
Okay.
Okay, that's so. Are there any other questions for Attorney Bond? No.
Are we good with the date though that we have to put?
Yes. Yes. Upon passage.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you. We've not met before. It's a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So who's going to talk about money? Well,
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Fredette. I'm the State Director of Special Education. We had completed the fiscal note for this bill in its original form, and we had been asked about students who were in separate schools. And so there are currently in the 21-22 school year, there were 6 students who were in a residential placement. I mean, you can see all of this. We were then asked, and it's not part of the fiscal note, some different questions by Representative Ladd at the last hearing. He had asked how many students were currently 21 within the state, and there are currently 4 students who are 21 within the state. And they are set to graduate at the end of this year. There are currently 186 students who are 20 years old. So that's the population I think that was in question.
okay. So you said 6 in residential placements.
But that was at the beginning of the year, so
Well,
numbers have changed slightly.
I mean,
Yep.
let's just assume that that's the right number.
Okay.
I mean, when we're talking whatever we're talking, $10 doesn't make a hill of beans. Okay, so we have 6 residential. And how many were 20?
So there's 186 that are age 20,
Okay,
and there are 4 that are age 21.
okay. And how many are between 18 and 20?
I do not have that number. I apologize. I would say that it's pretty close to the same for each age level, right around the 186, 190. Most of our population graduates when they're 18, and then it's the population gets smaller and smaller with each year up to 21. So I would just knowing those numbers, I would say it's probably right around 200 that are 19, and then a much larger number in age 18. Excuse me.
But the 18-year-olds, the school is already taking care of them.
Yep, most of them have gone through and they graduate at 18, and this is just the population of 19 to 21 now. And with this bill would be up to 22.
Okay. All right.
And then you had asked about cost. So we have a cost per pupil, and currently it's right around just under 18,000 per child, and we pay this out for special education aid. With the passage of this bill, we would be allowed to provide special education aid to students up to age 22, which we have not been able to do. So if a school district had chosen to keep a child after 21, they would pay that out of their own local funds rather than through special education aid or through their IDEA funds.
So how did you get to the 18,000 per student?
That comes from Caitlin's office.
Okay, well, come on up, Caitlin. Don't be sitting back there in the corner thinking I don't see you.
Here, I'll bring my own chair. Yes.
We use for special ed.
Right. So we calculate the average cost per pupil. So we do our regular average cost per pupil, and then we do an estimated average cost per pupil, which
Oh,
is
so this is not this is not just for special ed.
correct.
This is for the 18,000 is the average cost per student in school,
exactly.
not anything to do with aid.
Yes, and that's the number that's then used to generate the 3.5 times that is in catastrophic state special education aid.
Okay. Okay. So, do we have to, is there anything in here that says children with disability can continue to go to school? Yeah, that's probably the wrong term, but that we would pay the regular adequacy grant for.
So if those kids are to stay in school through 22, we would pay the adequacy grant for those kids during that time period.
Okay, no matter what the age, as long as they are enrolled.
Yes, up to 22.
Yeah.
Remember Cat 8? Well, they don't call it Cat 8 anymore, but special ed aid, they'd be still eligible for that aid.
Correct.
So, if I may,
Sure.
I believe the difference of cost would not be terribly significant based on, depending upon the percentage at which special ed aid is paid out for that small number of students who might be eligible.
There probably wouldn't be a large number, but it would, so if the districts would have to pay up to the 3.5 times.
Right, I
So
understand.
that's right around $62,000. So that would be a cost that they had not planned on from 21 to 22.
And that's what this amendment, if we were to accept it, would cover.
So it would want that $62,000. And I want to point out if the committee does actually want to do it this way, we have about $1.5 million of excess appropriation from state special education aid in the fiscal year 22 budget. I think the amendment would need to clarify that money would be specifically used for this and kind of a whole different section written for that, but that money would already be existing in the state budget for that, for one time only.
You said that was 1.1?
I think it's 1.4, 1.5 million. Yeah.
1.4 something.
And that's due to there was appropriated about $33 million this past year, and our total bill, which we pay on January 1st of every year, was only $31 million. So there's some excess appropriation.
So what I'm hearing is that you think you have the dollars to cover this.
So unless all 186 students stay until they're 22, if all 186 stay until they're 22, it would be about 3.3 million just for the cost per pupil.
But we know that's
but-
not going to happen.
But every team makes a determination. They may say the student isn't going to stay. They may say the student is. I mean, that's up to those 186 teams to make that determination.
Realistically, we don't have the individual expenditure information on these children right
Right.
now. So maybe
No,
the
they're not.
1.5.
They're not children anymore. Is the problem, and that's another issue. You know, when you're 18, you're supposed to be able to make decisions for yourself.
Well, but for the if I may,
Sure.
for the children, young adults for whom we're discussing, they really are in need of extensive care.
Oh, I don't
And
argue that.
really are not, for many of them, moving into adult services is probably the best option. This is a very 1%, 1.5% maybe we're talking about of children with disabilities. So for that population, they should be going into some kind of adult care, or the most extreme cases, those children will be staying in a facility, some kind of either a nursing home or some kind of a facility. So I just think that this is a move that I had hoped to see many, many years ago as a special ed teacher, working with children with disabilities. My caseloads would be big at a high school level. Most of my students would always graduate. A very, very small population of children would have to stay till they're 21. And moving on to 22, it's mostly those most severe cases, I believe, that we are talking about within this bill. I mean, that's my experience. And then my experience as assistant superintendent dealing with children with disabilities. It's the same thing, especially in residential placements.
So tell me why we need this study committee.
That was an amendment that happened after the hearing, so I didn't hear the discussion around the study committee.
Representative Heath, do you think we need a study committee?
Personally, I don't, but I there must have been a reason.
No, they're not necessarily.
The fact is, we need,
Yeah, for the sake of a commission.
I think the AG's office answered what the study committee would have said.
Yeah.
And I think, as former deputy commissioner, the AG's decisions were very valuable to me. And I didn't go through my life at all without talking to their office every single day. So I would feel comfortable if we could move toward doing what the AG's office has guided us to, and by providing relief to those school districts for those students by taking this amendment as maybe we need to make some changes in it.
Yeah.
I think we cover the bases of keeping the school districts whole and also addressing the needs of our children with disabilities that whatever reason it would be in their best interest to remain until they're 22. And it would be a very, very small number.
Okay, so I'm in favor of getting rid of this stupid. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and the legislative members. Oh, yeah. 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. The speaker will love it that we have eliminated a commission. Yeah. I mean, obviously you would be the person from DOE that would be on this commission. Do you think it's worthwhile?
as I said, I did not hear the discussion around the purpose of the commission.
Oh,
so
don't-
I would feel uncomfortable.
Don't evade me.
No, I don't, I really don't. I had a brief, view of it. I don't even really know everything that it says, so I would hate to say something.
Okay.
I think that the intention was to find out more information about the older children that are staying longer, but I'm not.
I mean,
As I said,
you will know that when we get the, whatever they call that.
Request for funding.
No, when we get the, the counts, the student counts, we'll know that. Okay, anyhow. So, Mickey, get rid of that, whatever it is, all of it. And DOE seems to think they would have sufficient dollars and whatever they call that for,
Not
20.
sure that's entirely sufficient. I think if you were interested in using that money, you would need to, one, talk about that it would need to be an allowable use of this money and that we would fully fund it, not just use the state special education aid formula. To make the money non-lapsing at the end of fiscal 22, because right now I believe it lapses. And then 3, potentially make it prorated if there's not enough money for all of the kids.
that'll work. Got all that, Mickey? I know, Caitlin's just at the other end of the phone line.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think there's a question of what period you would want this to apply to. So
Well-
the amendment came before you applying to a future fiscal year. There's been discussions of making this upon passage. Are you trying to make this apply to the 21-22 school year only, or 22-23, or all? So we would need some clarity on what period you would want these reimbursements to apply to.
22, 23. I mean, we can't, and I know you said that you'd like it effective upon passage, so we'll let the school districts pick up 6 months of the cost, and then the state will pick up the cost for 23, and then we'll budget something for 24.
That would take care of the remainder of this budget. Then
Yeah.
that's true. This could be part of a budget deliberation
Right.
for
I mean,
24 and beyond.
school is only, what, a month and a half? Yeah, May and June, 2 months. And everybody gets out on the 15th of June, so most everybody. So they'll have to pick up the cost for this year. The state will pick up the cost for next year, and then it'll go into the budget for 24, 25. Does that all work?
Many of them do, yes. So could we include that in this? That's typically part of their, special education aid and their entire.
And not to mention that there's probably, I'd hate to say how much is out there for summer programs. ESRA, yeah, ESRA money. So the schools can certainly figure out. I am just so angry about how much ESRA money is out on the table that I can't stand it. And so every time I think about it, I try not to.
Can I say one thing about that?
You can say anything you
Because
want.
we just heard our school district budget the other night, and I too was like irate because they've only spent $10 million. And the problem is there's not a way to show in ESSER that you were encumbering money for the upcoming school year. You have to first obligate it and spend the money before you can draw it down from the DOE, right?
So that is correct, but you can show it as obligated in the grants management system. So we have a column called allocation, and then we have obligation, and then that can go through the end of the allowable period of grant, which is through 24, I believe. So if they were planning on spending money next year, they could show that as obligated. And then the drawdown means it has actually been expended. So we do have a large amount of money that has not been drawn down. I'm not sure the amount of money that has been unobligated at this time.
So do school districts understand that they should be doing that?
I believe so.
I would
you.
say the answer to that is yes.
I hope so.
But
I
when,
might be calling you up from Manchester again.
yeah,
Come meet with
well,
us again.
yeah, but it's,
We do one of those annually.
I know.
it just drives me crazy.
I,
And it's not, what cares, whatever the first one was, there's still money in there.
Madam Chair, I agree with you. I can't tell you, when I worked at the department, I used to beg folks at points to spend their federal money in a timely fashion so they wouldn't lose it. I agree.
Okay. Caitlin, it's not your fault, all right? Yeah. I know. I mean, if you want to give it to me, I can spend it. I need a new Ferrari. Don't you? Oh, you want a Maserati? Okay, so we have some amendments on 374, and I guess we'll get all that straightened around. In 23. Yep. Sure. I don't want to miss something.
I'm sorry. I received an email from Representative Cordelli this morning, and he asked me to pass along to the committee that he heard from a parent yesterday who is planning a due process challenge if the law is not changed with an effective date. I just wanted to make sure. I
Okay.
told him I'd convey that, and I had not, so.
Thank you. I love threats. Yeah, it's fixed. You could, okay. Yeah, and I will let Representative Ladd know that I canceled his commission. That's okay. I'm canceling something else he put in too, so he'll be happy with me for the rest of the year. Yeah. Okay, so all right. Look at us flying through this stuff. I thought this was going to take us forever to get through, but anyhow. Yeah. Right, something. Oh, hi. Come on in. Come on in. We're just knocking this stuff out like crazy. We got an amendment first. Not you. Oh, well, come on up. No, you can sit down. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So, Marty Jack, Hillsborough 36, which is Nashua. I happen to be
Can you
in.
hang on just a second?
Sure.
Thank you. We'll make up something about. No. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Okay.
Right. So 401 went through the Criminal Justice Committee because of the body worn camera provisions. I happened to be subbing in the committee that day, and there's $66 million of highway funds for State Aid Bridge and Formula A that are included in the bill also. The Municipal Association brought suggested language. The purpose of the language is to allow towns to accept and expend these funds without having to have a town meeting first, so that they could use them in 22, and typically the town will not be having another town meeting until next year. The way this is drafted, it is not obvious what they changed. It starts on line 7, no funds appropriated through the end of that section. And then on line 16, no funds appropriated through the end of that section. And on line 24, the funds appropriated. That's the change. This is exactly what the municipal, it basically carves out an exception so that towns will fall under 31:95 and can expend the funds as unanticipated revenue. And I would encourage the committee to adopt this
Yeah,
so that they can expend the funds this year.
right. Transportation has another idea on that we basically need to change how we're planning to send this money out. Kathy will tell us. We don't want to mess up safety and transportation, but this is the 60, yeah, the 66 in going out for bridge and road repair. And you had mentioned in your email to me that you thought this was a bad idea because of how it's constructed.
No, not a bad idea. Kathy Mulcahy Hampson on behalf of the Department of Transportation, Marie Mullins with me. The department's absolutely thrilled with $36 million going to transportation infrastructure. We haven't spoken to the Senate that brought the amendment forward in terms of their intent, but it appears obvious that they want funds to go to the municipalities for transportation infrastructure, and that's wonderful. Again, the department's thrilled. The money going into the state aid bridge program is a little more involved. And the department had received federal funds through the IIJA. And those funds had a certain formula. So there's currently 6.7 or 6.8 million a year that goes to state aid bridge. With the IIJA funds, that program doubled. Coincidentally, with the formulas the feds had put out, it's another 6.7 or 6.8 million. So state aid bridge program has doubled. The 36 million additional under this amendment going into state aid bridge, we just want the committee to understand the process that's involved with state aid bridge. And it's a lot of work, it's time consuming, and the program's just doubled, so we're doing that work.
So can we just distribute the money based on whatever form? Don't shake your head back there. Just based on the formula without going through the bridge thing and tell the communities that it's for bridge work.
Yes, that would be more expeditious, but there's not a formula so much for state aid bridge like there is for block grant aid. State aid bridge is first come, first served. They apply for it. But if you took the block grant aid formula or based on the number of bridges in that community and did a different type of formula, we just wanted to come in and apprise the committee of the process that's involved with state aid bridge, and it's a year or more from the time we solicit projects until they're selected, and then there's an agreement with the municipality. If you want to get the funds out more expeditiously to the towns, then that would be directing the funds right to the towns and not through the state aid bridge. We love funds going to the municipalities for transportation infrastructure, bridges, roads. It's wonderful. We just wanted the committee to realize that it's not going out as quickly as the legislature might want it to if it's in the state aid bridge program.
Okay, Senator Representative Graham, you were back there shaking your head.
The option that I would see wherever
Yeah, just so that because we're on whatever.
work session. And we'll also be it. The options that I see based on what your questions were is you take the whole 66 million and turn it into an apportionment out to the towns, or you leave it in state bridge aid, which then specifies that it's got to be used for bridges. And it is a process. And it is a cost sharing process with the towns, as I think everybody here knows. But if you just do it a straight apportionment, they can use it on any kind of maintenance and work and everything else on their roads. And I'm not sure how many of them could turn out that much more money as long as we can make it non-lapsing to the towns in their town or city budget. That would have to be worked out. I just would think that it might be better to leave it as state bridge aid so that towns can look at, okay, we have to have our match, and then there is this additional money of 36 million that we can come forward, and then the department can prioritize who's come in, which bridges are actually eligible, because some of them aren't, and the federal money really complicated the whole issue because not every municipal bridge meets the criteria to use the federal money because of the length of the bridges. We got a tutorial on that in Public Works, but that's why there was a long list of different bridges and funding and what we passed in the 10-year transportation plan.
I think the goal of this was to get the money out quickly, okay, and not to spend a year in trying to fiddle with the bureaucracy of transportation. And I understand why.
We all understand why. I just think that how do you make, if we give, say, Bedford another 1 point whatever million, which would be if we got the full apportionment, we may not be able to do all that work this year with that money. I mean,
we would make it non-lapsing.
Can you do that to towns?
The town can do it themselves.
Okay. Then that might be a way to do it rather than bridges. Although there is a long list, and I did bring it with me, about this thick of municipal red listed bridges.
Right.
That she's got.
Right. But I guess my point is, I don't care where they spend the money.
But yeah.
I mean, as long as it's for infrastructure.
Yeah, but the problem is with bridges, if the state's going to pick up 80% of the bridge, then coming up with a 20% match is better than spending $2 million on a bridge in town.
Okay.
I mean, and that's kind of where I'm looking at it from. I know what's going on in Bedford, and I know what goes on across the others.
Yeah, so what we would have to say to the towns is that this money can only be used for road repair, construction, whatever. I don't know what the right words are.
Yeah.
No, because infrastructure
There's
covers
words
many
in the
things.
apportionment statute right now on what it can be used for. You can use that, but it doesn't get, as she just held up, there's 200 and some red listed municipal bridges that doesn't get taken care of if we don't keep putting money towards them.
Well, we've got,
I mean, if I may, we could put, we could come up with some ideas now on Tuesday at the public hearing with some other alternatives.
there's no public hearing.
Oh, there's no public hearing.
No,
Okay.
we're not having a public hearing.
Okay.
We'll have another work session just like this.
Okay. Well, at the next work session, we could come up with some other ideas, but there's always, you could direct it, as you say, towards bridges to the communities. And then they could provide a letter of intent to the department of what bridge or what projects they intend to use it on, so that we could assure that it's going towards bridges. There might be some different options, and we could bring some different ideas. if you want to get it, spent expeditiously and give that freedom to the towns to be able to determine what bridge they would like to prioritize and that type of thing.
Go ahead, John.
Just a suggestion.
I'm sorry,
But
Representative
if
Graham.
you're going, it's John. But if you're going to do that, how do you apportion it out to all 200 towns and cities to make sure that everybody gets because we're only talking 36 million, which doesn't do a lot of bridges. So would it be still first come, first serve, or if
No,
I
think
got
it would be on an allocation basis based
So if
on
I
the
got,
square
say-
footage of bridges in each town, or, something like that. So, this,
There's a formula there.
Yeah.
but we could just
Okay.
use it specific to bridge, the allocation of bridges in the towns. And then each town would get their fair share related to the number or size of bridges that they have. And then that would guarantee all the towns get money directed to them that have bridges. I'm
Is there-
assuming
Still with the
most
match?
towns have
Yes.
bridges, so.
Go ahead.
But they, like, 5 and 14 already say that it's not lapsing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, yeah.
Right,
That's
that's at the
at
state
the state level. That's not, we have to direct the towns that they can't just put it into their rainy day fund and spend it for toilets. What'd you say?
the question still would have to be answered if we do an apportionment on bridges. Do the towns and cities still have to come up with their match under the RSA for state bridge aid? Or are we just going to say, here's this, go out and first come, first serve, well, whatever, you can spend 100% on this one bridge to get it done. And that language would have to be in there if you're not going to have them do a match to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if and you could make it so it's not part of the state bridge aid program RSA. It could be a separate allocation law, that gets passed specifically for this instance, not related to the state bridge aid program and the rules and that type of thing. But like Kathy said, that's up to the legislature and the policy, what you want to set, whatever you want to do, the department will follow through. If you want to go through the state aid bridge program, we'll do that. But we wanted to just let you know that process, how long it takes. And
Let's come up with a new policy for this money for bridges. Okay? So it doesn't have to flow through the state aid bridge thing. It just says that we're going to allocate it equitably or whatever. And you have to tell us what bridges you're going to fix. Is that right? But anyhow, you'll come back on
yeah, we can come back Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Madam Chair.
But again, we haven't spoken, I'm sorry, we haven't spoken with the Senate yet, so we weren't sure what their intent was.
Don't
with
worry
this as
about the
well.
Senate. I'll take care of them. That's
Don't tell them we said it was a bad idea, please.
oh, I've already forwarded that email.
I think following up on the chair's comments, I would like to specifically make sure it goes to bridges. I don't want block grants to towns when somebody decides, hey, let's put in a new road over here. Let's take care of the red listed bridges. How you allocate that, but you guys can best decide that, but I think it needs to be the bridges.
But, Madam Chair, you're still just looking at that 36 million that says for bridges, and because there's still another 30 million which would go out for all road repair and maintenance and the rest under the current RSA.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure that even in there, that we say it has to be used for roads, and you can keep it for however long you need until you spend the last penny. So you don't have any problem with that?
No, that's how the block grant law reads now, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
Those requirements are in the law right now, so.
okay. Is there anything else that you hated about this bill?
We love money going to transportation infrastructure.
We're very supportive of
We
money
really,
going
no,
to
we
infrastructure.
appreciate the legislature recognizing the need.
Yeah.
It's tremendous. Thank you.
One thing I would caution on is we talk about the red list bridges, and we wouldn't want to punish towns that have been diligent in
Right.
preserving their bridges and doing that work. So that's why we, think an allocation, a fair allocation to all communities based on the number of bridges or square footage would be the most equitable rather than targeting it specifically at red list. So.
I agree.
And Madam Chair, I would still suggest that under the apportionment A distributions, that we include the language that says they can go ahead and start spending it this year when it becomes effective, rather than waiting for our next town meeting to say,
Oh,
"Yep,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank-"
absolutely. You can, the day you get it, the selectmen accept it or the council or,
The municipal association asked for that language.
Yeah.
And it
that's
didn't
in,
get put in last time.
that's in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, my clerk wants your names.
Kathleen Mulcahy Hampson for the Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
MULCAHEY hyphen HAMPSO. H hyphen Hampson HAMPSON.
And she's in charge of transportation. They have somebody else put the name of she in it.
And my name's Marie Mullen. Hopefully. Director of Finance at DOT.
And I'd just like to apologize to the committee that the commissioners could not be present today. It was quick notice and they all had longstanding meeting that they could not change, so.
No problem. I mean, you don't have to apologize. We're just a friendly group of people that love to take care of our friends.
We appreciate it.
And we do have some enemies, but
I know.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Unless
Thank you.
unless you're interested in dashboard cameras.
Well, we
So
are.
we're not on, we're not for the dash cameras for the inventory fund. That's for the $1 million. That's for local law enforcement. But we do have section 4 in the, that was added to the bill for authorizing the Department of Transportation to operate dash cameras in their fleet.
Oh, these are your fleet vehicles.
Yes,
Oh, that's paragraph 4.
yes.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on that. I do have a couple of handouts with pictures. The department's seeking the authorization to operate the cameras because there's laws prohibiting surveillance on the highways. So we were specifically asking for authorization for this. The reason is, one, for safety, so that the traveling public and our employees are more protected by these cameras. And secondly, as Marie can testify to, we do have some issues collecting for damages caused to our vehicles. Drivers strike the vehicles and take off. We don't have any information, no plate information. We can't identify them. It would help, one, to know what happened, and two, to be able to identify the vehicle and the plate so we can actually collect damages when the vehicles are totaled. The ones I gave you are 2 of the 25 that have been struck since January of this year. They're safety patrol vehicles, so we have a DOT employee out on the road in these safety patrol vehicles, and they pull over to help motorists in need, and they're out of the vehicle, and one that was struck is going to be totaled. That was the level of damage to the vehicle. So it's a big safety issue for the department. Did you want to add to that, Marie, with the claims?
Yeah, I mean, it helps us get the claim. Some people drive off, but I mean, primarily the safety. Many of you may have seen last month, I think that probably that first picture on MUR, they had the video. Luckily, our employee he was in the vehicle but was not injured. And so, but having that dash cam, we were able to identify the vehicle that struck the employee, and thankfully no one was hurt, but I know the state police have the same issue, but it's a very bad, safety issue. We want to make sure our employees are protected and that we can collect for any damages.
I think in that video, he had his own camera
Yeah,
on
he had
it.
his own,
Yeah,
yeah.
he had his own camera in the truck.
Oh, the
Yeah.
employee.
Yeah.
Other questions? Sure, go ahead.
How does that balance out with, say, videos that you can't use on the highway supposedly? This is your freedom to, in other words, what are you going to use the information for? Is it going to be deleted after a certain amount of time? I mean, we don't want this used for,
I think it provides, if
Other
there's no incident that's been recorded, it would be deleted after, I think it's 3 days it's provided. And otherwise it's over, if there's an incident and someone requests it or the department needs it, we would keep it at the Transportation Management Center, which is secured. It's not put out on a public site or anything like that.
Yeah, it says, except as otherwise provided, no video recording shall be stored longer than 3 business days. Is there an H?
And a request would be required within that 3 days by state police or somebody else that needs it for an incident. Otherwise, it gets deleted and there would be nothing kept at the TMC after that point.
So,
you can understand that, this can be used for nefarious purposes as far as the, whoever. I mean, it's, we don't want to be under 1984 circumstance, and it's, that would bother me. But I can understand your point where, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of putting one in. I had a couple incidents myself where, I didn't, matter of fact, you have to eat those costs sometimes because you don't have any proof. And of course, cameras are obviously proof, so, thank you.
To follow
ahead.
up on Representative Petrie's issue, this was subject to debate on the House floor yesterday, this particular issue. And you mentioned incidences, and I guess we could go into a long line of questioning on what defines an incident. Are we talking incidents that apply to a DOT truck? Does it apply to a DOT individual who's outside his truck? Does it, going down Representative Petrie's road, I mean, does it, if the truck happens to capture a citizen doing something, can the state police then say, hey, we want to requisition that video? And you see where some people would
Correct.
go with this.
I understand from our Director of Operations that the quality of the video isn't the best. So it would be something in close proximity to the truck that would be captured. A vehicle striking it or a situation with a person on the side of the road or our employee. It's not a whole big wide area that's being captured. It's more essentially what the driver's seeing from behind the wheel, but not the best quality.
Just so you're aware, there are concerns out there about this.
Yes, I understand. Thank
they-
you.
yeah.
Again, the film would be kept for no more than 3 days unless there's a request for a legal purpose, such as a need for it in court. The department needs to make a claim against someone for damage to the vehicle. Otherwise, the video is gone. We're too busy a department to keep tabs on everybody else in New Hampshire.
Okay.
I would hope so. So, Steve, did you want to come and talk about this other one? The $1 million? Is that yours?
Steve Lavoie, I'm the Director of Administration from the Department of Safety. The $1 million appropriation is to fund the existing body and dashboard camera grant program for locals, municipalities to implement dashboard cameras in their communities. And so this was established through the last budget process in House Bill 2. $1 million was appropriated. The program was released. We had 29 applicants come through the first program. Over 700 and I want to say $760,000 was awarded, and we have about 115,000 or so left in that fund. So this would allow us to go through and offer a second pass for those communities that weren't able to apply due to timing within their process. And I do see that there's some language added here to address the local process acceptance of the funds too. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the grant program itself or anything else related to it. But it is a program that we at the department administer these funds. We don't receive them. This is just passing those funds on to the locals based on their applications.
You probably said it and I probably missed it. Is the current fund already totally wiped out?
We have about $120,000 left.
Okay, thank you.
How many went out? Do you know? How many dash cams?
I don't know the total number of cameras. There were 29 communities who received funding.
Okay.
And it varies. I mean, some were very small where there's only a handful, and there's some that were larger.
Okay.
And what's nice about the program is it allows the community to choose whichever model will fit for them. There's a couple different approaches with body cameras. You can go with a hosted solution and lease the equipment. You can buy the equipment and keep your servers on site. The grant program itself is silent. Whichever options work for the community will be considered.
Yeah, we did it in two. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And we were hoping that it would be taken up.
And I would like to say, in those discussions, we had requested a position to help us administer it. That position is filled. That's the only reason we were able to really get this out timely. And based on our assessment, we don't need any additional staff support for the second tranche of funding.
Good.
For this $1 million amount. If the amount changed, we might have a different discussion.
Well, that was a temporary position, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions on 401? Any other comments? I see some people that had nothing to do on a Friday afternoon that joined us, of which I'm very happy. So, Kathy and Marie will get something back. If you could get something to Mickey like on Monday, then what?
Or sooner.
Oh, okay.
Would be good.
Oh, like Saturday. Oh. Okay. So, is there anything else? Oh, just so everybody knows, we're going to start at 9:00 on Monday, and we have, I think it's 4 education bills that we're going to take up. Oh, boy. I just hate to schedule you for Monday afternoon, not knowing how long those bills are going to take.
For 401,
Yeah.
we have a work session already scheduled for Tuesday for Senate Bill 401 because it's after the public hearing on the non-germane amendment.
Yeah, but we just did that today, right?
Did what today? The
401.
Or
was that already on the schedule?
401 was today, but it was scheduled twice, so it was already scheduled for a work session.
Okay.
So you don't have to recess this to Tuesday
All
if you're okay with waiting till Tuesday to revisit this.
Yeah, but maybe I'd like to do it. Well,
If we want to do Monday along with the education bills, we could recess this till then.
yeah, well, I think we'll just wait. Because I was surprised at how quickly the special ed thing went. So, yeah, it did. Okay, so 9 o'clock Monday morning, education. You're going to be in Athens. Um, you know, so have fun. Enjoy the weather. Don't get sick. Okay, thanks all. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with me.
Well, it's, the concern, I mean, and we got those concerns yesterday, and it's unfortunate, but I.